Hello again, everyone. I'm Dr. George Simon, and welcome to another edition of the new Character Matters program. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we have faced for some time now, and that affects every single aspect of our lives. I've recently concluded a series on the topic of love and what it is and what it isn't, misconceptions about it. But because love really does have the power to not only heal us, but to heal the world, it was an important topic to address. Too many folks these days are insufficiently developed in their character to have the capacity to truly love. And that's a tragedy that affects everything, especially our more intimate relationships. But it touches every aspect of our lives. Character is that aspect of our personalities that reflects our personal ethics, our commitment, our deep embrace of important values and principles that help guide us through life and help make life among our fellow human beings and in relationship to everything else in creation healthy and wholesome. Without character, it all falls apart. No matter how many rules, no matter how many structures, no matter how many institutions, no matter how many punishments we devise, nothing takes the place of character. We knew this once. We knew it deeply. And we knew the most essential requirements for helping groom good character, to encourage it, to reward it, to expect it. But we've lost sight of those things, and as a result, the problems human beings have always had since the beginning of time have gotten worse. We're deeply divided, and our relationships don't hold together very well. People are miserable, and they're searching. They know that something better can be had, but we've lost our way toward that. The answer lies where it always has: character. And today I want to begin talking about an important aspect of character, an important aspect of character that helps us to learn what it is to really love and to have healthy and wholesome relationships. Psychologists have always talked about superego. Spiritual teachers have always talked about conscience, that kind of inner voice that tells us whether something we are contemplate doing is really a good idea or a bad idea, whether in the bigger picture it's right or wrong. Now, with so much relativism and so much egocentricity and so much grandiosity permeating our highly individualistic culture, many folks sincerely believe in their heart that how they see things is reality. There's no room for some bigger governing authority, the thing that many folks call a higher power. And it's a person's relationship with that hard to define higher power in their life, the set of governing principles, things that they have learned, have been taught. It's a person's relationship with that pretty well defines the state of their conscience. And today, unfortunately, in our times, too many folks go through life with an underdeveloped conscience, with an impaired conscience. And that's perhaps one of the greatest reasons for so much character dysfunction. Now, to put it very simply, and I realize this is an oversimplification, but to put it simply and plainly, a strong conscience will primarily prompt a person to do two things. A strong and healthy conscience will push a person to do the things that seem inherently difficult, that aren't very appealing for one reason or another, require sacrifice, etc., might involve a certain amount of pain. A healthy, strong conscience will prompt a person to go ahead and do those difficult things. So a healthy conscience pushes when necessary. It also holds back when necessary. That's the other thing it does. It helps us refrain from doing what seems very attractive, but more than likely, in the long run, will have devastating consequences, not just to others and not just to the world at large, but to our own spiritual welfare. That's why so many people are so hungry today. I know I've shared similar examples before, but just yesterday, in the course of driving to a certain location and being on the road for about 45 minutes, just yesterday, I witnessed no less than 6 individuals brazenly pass through intersections with red lights. And I'm not talking about, approaching an intersection where the light has just changed and you've been going too fast and there's no way to safely stop. No, I'm talking about judging, sizing up the situation, other people not moving quite fast enough for the driver in question, and then plowing right through the institution set up to regulate. And I wish I could say that this was a rare occurrence. I wish I could say that it is a rare occurrence that folks regard speed limits as anything more than mere suggestions. When I was younger, it was not uncommon to see the red lights at that time and later the blue lights flashing. When you were going twice the speed limit, especially in a residential zone. In my neighborhood, we have signs that say, drive as though your children live here, which they do. And yet, the sign serves no useful purpose for most folks. Here's the thing. Folks who have a healthy conscience, who have a set of governing principles, and in their hearts subordinate themselves to those higher principles, don't need signs, don't need the regulations to tell them what to do. They never have. They have an internal moral compass based on values and principles. Whereas individuals who have not grown out of their inherent egocentricity and their inherent defiance of any limits or structures or boundaries on their behavior, for those folks, no sign, no restriction, no threatened punishment makes any difference. We cannot regulate ourselves externally. We have millions of rules and laws, restrictions, and regulations on the books. People of good character don't need them to be decent human beings. And people with poor character don't pay attention to them anyway. This is why we're here. And this is why, like a broken record, I keep reiterating that we will not get us out of the phase that we have been in our sociocultural environment until we reclaim the importance of character, and more than that we renew our awareness of what it takes to forge it. How much is involved in helping a human being become a person of decent character at any age? Human beings take longer than any other creature on the planet to properly socialize. But in an environment where all the values are in question and where there is so much resentment, we're internalizing controls and motivations that are based on higher governing principles that most of us can't even agree on anymore. In a culture like that, this vicious cycle between character disturbance and an entitled, impulsive, relativistic, directionless culture will continue. Who we are matters. What values we embrace matters. What we push ourselves to do, even though it's tough, but because it's the right thing to do in the bigger picture, serving something much more important than ourselves, is one step toward a healthier conscience. And holding ourselves back, even when something looks very tempting, even when we think we can get away with it, because in the end, it's not only good for those that we are in relationship with, but it's not good for the state of our own soul. That's what healthy conscience is all about. You can find some articles on it on my blog at www.drgeorgesimon.com. That's drgeorgesimon.com. And you can find in all of my books a discourse on this topic, especially the Judas syndrome, and my latest offering, Essentials for the Journey. I have taken the advice of folks, and I have completed some narration and will finish narration of Essentials for the Journey, and we'll have an announcement hopefully at the first of the year about the availability of the audio version of the book. So stay tuned on that. I'll have more information. And I will be continuing this series on conscience and character because of its paramount importance. When some tragedy happens, when there's a mass shooting or other tragic event, relatively decent people always wonder what kinds of new structures and rules and restrictions we could put into place, or punishments. It will not save us from these things. And by the way, I would ask you to consider if very few of us can actually back off the accelerator just a little bit when it's probably wise to do so. And if very few of us really heed both the reality and the purpose of the speed limits imposed upon us, if we can't bite our tongue when someone offends us, And we know very well in our hearts we probably shouldn't say what we're about to say, especially in the manner that we're about to say it. If very few of us have the internal control necessary to conduct ourselves in a regulated manner, when it's not all that urgent that we do so, how can we be expected to hold ourselves back when something is really attractive to us? How can we be expected to push ourselves to do the nobler thing when it's unappealing? We can't exercise proper control in the little things. What makes anyone think that when the chips are seriously down or stressors have mounted like crazy, or we're feeling very put upon or misunderstood, what makes anybody think that if you haven't got as much control as I mentioned earlier, that you're going to refrain from doing the unthinkable when the stress is really upon you? The secret to character is doing the right little things when nobody's watching and when it doesn't seem to matter very much. Because when those controls are deeply installed and deeply embraced simply because it's right to do so, in service of something bigger than our own sweet desires, then when the big challenges of life come about, we're better able to control ourselves. That's why I write, and I've insisted in all my books and in several online articles, that character is like a psychological immune system. It helps us weather all the difficulties and storms of life, get us through those times, preparing us. But it's those little things that matter, and matter a lot. I hope you'll tune in again next time for another edition of the New Character Matters. Until then, I invite you to please visit my blog at drgeorgesimon.com and avail yourself of all my written works. And if you have a mind to, if you're seeking help and direction and want to contact me, you can do that through the blog. And in the meantime, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dr. George Simon. Take care.